minus 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the Launch Sequence Podcast, episode 81. And we've got a good lineup today. The classics, the Inforunners basically. Astro Pub and Execute have joined me today for a good episode. We're going to talk about a lot of features. Welcome guys, how you doing today?
I went over this before. I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay.
It just
But
starts
this
out the podcast, it's terrible.
So yeah, for viewers, have you ever had a day where literally everything you did screwed up, and no matter what you do, it would continue to screw up, and you're just like, I want to go back to sleep and just try it again tomorrow? That's what I'm at right now. So
You got it all out of his system before we started, though, didn't you? So it's
yes, hopefully I jinxed everything else other than this. So
We'll see.
We're good so far.
Creep into a little bit of the 318 commentary, but we'll let it slide. Execute, how are you doing, man?
pretty good. Starting to recover from AIE. Rounding that bell curve, getting ready for 318 as we're talking about today, and I'm just kind of interested to see where it goes. Like as we said a little bit before the show, it's the biggest patch of the year, and there's a lot of potential. We've kind of been really waiting for it, and I think a lot of it is going to be I'll talk about it later, but you know what I mean. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, it's a good looking patch, and as Execute just said, today is going to be a good day of features, my friends. We're talking about 318, Alpha 318, the new Star Citizen patch coming out. It's got a lot of big changes from Salvage to the entire introduction of the actual racing profession, to persistent entity streaming, to Gen 12 optimizations. It's a huge patch. There's a lot of stuff. It's good stuff. I like it. It's Christmas. So
it's huge out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like we're all expecting like a very cut down, like just gonna get the basics in. And then CIG decides to be like, oh, by the way, racing is a thing now.
Yeah. And of course, as has been the case over the last year or so, new small features leaking in on the sides, patch watches going up on Spectrum where they talk about little things that aren't on the roadmap. So it's good. We're also going to, if hopefully we can be concise with this, although, knowing the group here, I don't think we will be, but
Algrid's not here. It's okay.
At length, he's completely wrong. It's totally short, right?
We'll see what we can do. But if we have some time at the end, we are also going to get into what's coming in the next year. So I just released my own video on YouTube about some ship features for that stuff. But over the next few weeks on this podcast, I'm going to bring in different guests, and we're going to talk about the kinds of things they expect in their lane of the game coming next year. So today, happy to hear what you guys think.
Can I ask real quick, what is the one feature you're looking forward to most in 318?
It's tough because it's like there's
give
different
you the,
reasons.
Yeah, I will give you the.
You only get one
reason.
You only get one.
What? PES, because it's done. I'm tired of freaking talking about PES.
Yeah,
I'm tired of it being this. Like, just get it out. Just push that baby out of the basket and let's keep moving.
Yeah. So, what if it doesn't work?
It won't work.
What if it breaks?
It won't work.
No.
It's gonna break.
No. I mean, like, what if it iCache breaks? Like, what if they're just like, oh crap?
I don't think we'd be at this stage if an iCache broke.
Yeah,
like
that's fair. That's fair. But I
so
just
like,
because they talk about rolling it out to a wider audience and everything, and I'm just like, man, what if they get to the point where it scales and it goes from like 999,000 to 1 million entities, and then it's just like, can't do it anymore. Sorry, find another way. But I guess they are a little smarter than that. That's why I'm not manning the game.
Wouldn't that scale the servers to fit that because of the object containers?
Dude, I don't know. Don't talk smart things with me, okay? I'm just here to speculate about how.
I'm trying to give you an answer. That's your answer. They change the size of the object containers, so therefore the entities can change. That's how it all works.
All right, Execute's over here making up words.
So yeah, that's me. So what's your favorite one then that you're looking forward to?
Oh no, same thing, man. PES is.
Oh really?
Yeah, I mean it's huge, dude. It's like 3.0, 3.3, 315, and 318. Those are like the big patches, in my opinion. Those changed this game. And PES, obviously, on its own isn't that big. but look at how many different things are going to be able to function with it, from the cargo refactor to the damage maps to, you know, freaking tracking stuff to base building to server meshing. Like all these things get enabled by it.
For me, because it's such a back end thing, it's actually not the one I think that I'm looking forward to the most, because it's one of those things that a lot of players are just not going to kind of notice.
Yeah.
Right. It is really, really important. Right. Don't get me wrong on that. But for me, I think the one that most people are going to notice are the DirectX 12 improvements. I think that's the one I'm looking forward to most, because more people can get in. The thing is, every time the kind of requirements come down, they turn up the number of people you can put on a server. So I'm hoping they don't do that, so more people can get in.
They will.
Like I kind of want to lower the requirements, because the lower it is, like look at Blizzard games. Like the lower their requirements are, the more people play them. That's. I'm not saying that we need to turn all the graphics down. I'm just saying the more people that can get in and play the game, the more stable it is, the bigger this community is going to be, and the health of it improves, etc.
Well, there's definitely a balance in that, you know, this is a game that was concepted on the idea of, hey, this is a PC game. We're going to push the boundaries. We're doing bigger things than generally a computer can run. And obviously computers have changed since then, but like how much of the market should be able to play the game? That's
a good question.
Obviously you can't just throw a number out to answer that question, but like how much do they need to optimize the game versus continuing to try and make this ridiculously impressive space sim?
Yes.
That's the answer.
Well, here's the other thing. Do you think the requirements of, because the game's taking more and more time to develop, have the requirements dropped? And I would kind of have to assume they have dropped. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Because
I mean,
you
also have Vulkan coming in, which will drop it even further.
Yeah,
So-
and like you could not. I remember a point where you could have the best computer in the industry, and you still wouldn't be getting more than 30 frames per second. And it's gotten better since then. I think only in the last year and a half or so that it feels like a lot more computers can run the game. But I agree with you. I think it's good to lower the requirements more, because it's easy to forget how few people can afford or even get the parts for computers that can run a game like this.
I'm going to disagree with you though, Execute, on the fact that I think the most people would, if the average person, if you tell them what are you looking forward to at 318, they'll say Salvage.
Yeah, you're right. No,
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah.
No.
But it's hard to point down, because like when you talk about it, like pirates will say piracy, people who want to do salvage will say salvage, but they'll also say like the disabling features. Racers will say racing, because that's being added. Traders will say cargo refactor, because it's getting their gameplay loop. Like bounty hunters will say, you know, disabling, and all the like the changes to weapons, and like there's so much stuff in this game that I feel like touches a lot of niche hobbies. And that's one of the reasons why all three of us never didn't say gameplay features, because all three of us are like not really into those niches as hardcore. And so as a result, we don't tend to think of those as advantages, but they are. But it's also very much for like small groups, which are on the periphery of Star. So it's not the main group. They don't affect everyone. So
yeah, well, that's kind of why I thought of the performance stuff, because it's kind of like what Space said. Everyone can use a performance increase. So yeah, but you're right about what you said about Salvage, and I think the other thing I'll just add to that would be also Salvage is pirate adjacent, so it probably makes a little bit bigger than most people realize. So yeah, I am looking forward to Salvage myself though. So I think it won't really take off though until the munching comes in. What do you guys think about that? Because to me, I'm not exactly sold on the stripping thing.
Yeah, I think Salvage is a good one to dive into. I like the munching, and I think it's going to be cool, but I also think that the salvaging, I think it's great that it's coming in 318 finally. And I understand some of the criticisms of, okay, it's actually like part of the repair stuff, and it was brought over and turned into salvaging, and it's only a part of the salvage, whatever. That's of course, that's what CIG does, but it's better than mining, which I think kind of proves out the idea that I don't know if there were any teams that actually backed off on this feature.
Is it better or different? I don't think you should look at it as better. I think you should just think it as something new.
When I say better, I mean it's more prepared for the game coming in. Not necessarily the gameplay itself, but it is definitely
more finalized.
Yeah. And you can tell it's tier 1 rather than tier 0, which I think is good, and that helps them. But we talked about this on your podcast earlier today, Execute, or on the Inforunners rather. It's locked behind money. Like you can't access vehicle salvage.
Something we
Unless
we
you
did
be
talk
able
spend
to.
money.
about. Yeah. One of the things that came up there was like we hope they give people access to this new gameplay feature, and are we really going to make them wait 6 months before they can earn one in game? You see, it's tricky, isn't it?
Well, the other problem is that you also have hand salvage.
Right.
There you go.
So you actually have access to hand salvage, which means that you can still salvage. You can't salvage, which was better than mining, because when mining came out, you just had to have the prospector,
right?
And you couldn't buy it. You couldn't even rent it, but because they didn't have hand mining yet. So like they have more accessible. It's still available.
Yeah, it's
so
better.
If you think it through, then so what you're essentially saying is you test it with hand mining, and if it's something that appeals to you, you would then say, all right, now go buy a vulture if that appeals to you. Is that kind of where you're going? Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, I also am not a fan of CIG holding new ships hostage for money for 6 months. I think that's a bad practice. I think they should, if it's available for everyone, make it available for everyone.
It was 3, and then they increased it to 6.
Yeah, 3 months seemed decent. I think it's definitely not as bad if there are other ships that do the same thing in the game. So 3 months, like I could see, but 6 months is just like, no, come on, not anymore.
Like think about repair. Like when the Crucible comes out and when the Vulcan comes out, they'll be the only ships that can repair. No one other ship could, which is really limiting for gameplay. So like this is a problem that CIG is going to have to tackle as they're bringing out newer ships.
Yeah,
they did say the hand tools come in with repair though as well.
But that's in this patch. But that's not the repair, like the detailed repair.
Not the ship version. Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the under thing. Yeah.
Like the rebuilding the whole like the extra
frame,
structure,
the munchy.
Like
yeah. Man, we need a title of what that actually is. I don't know what to call it. I've always just called it the
regurgitation.
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming it's. I've kind of worked it out. It's a version of. They're going to make it probably look like 3D printing. And a thing you used to be able to do in the day was you could like have an animated transparent texture. So if they just have it like if you've got think of it like a cylinder, they're essentially printing a cylinder. They can literally just move the texture along in line with where the arm is animated and going, and they can probably just program the arm to follow the edge of the polygons.
Yeah.
Well, how about Salvage as a whole? Like, how do you guys feel about it? Just looking at the feature itself, how do you imagine yourself playing it? How do you think people per se in your community are gonna kind of grab onto it?
I'm gonna say the unpopular thing. It's exploration, but professional. Yes. And for those who don't know about my theory on exploration, because everyone's like, I want to be an explorer. I want to go make love to alien women and visit exotic.
Is that an exploration thing?
Find jump points and new planets. You're not gonna.
Where no man has gone before, Space Tomato.
Yes. Man, Honey's gonna hate us for this one.
Oh boy,
it's all on you.
We're getting coal for Christmas.
The point being that I think the vast majority of exploration is just going to be mapping and surveying. It's going to be very basic. You're going to be using your golf swing mechanic kind of scanning, categorizing, moving along. I think that's the same thing that salvage is going to be. You scan, you find a piece of salvage, you strip it, you bring it back, and you get a little bit of money from it. And I think the one thing that I'm concerned about with it is that a lot of people will find out you don't make a ton of money on it, or you probably make stupid amounts of money early on.
First, yeah.
Because CIG is going to tweak it. They're going to tweak it so it's really high. So.
They've made it so it's as almost as valuable as Quantanium. It's actually in the notes. Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason why they do it is because they want people to test it. But the problem is that the like 319, it's going to get nerfed into the ground.
Yeah.
So, and the reason why is because they can't make it so it's so valuable that someone's just going to pull out their Connie and then strip it and then claim it and then do it again, because then they can just make instant millions.
Yeah.
And I don't think they really get that. But
so
it's also
separate from the money making aspect of it. Then what do you think? Is it good gameplay?
I think it's good gameplay. I think it's a different type of gameplay though. It's gameplay for the explorer who doesn't want to mine.
I think that's when it's done, but not right now. But I get where you're coming from. Really?
Because like they're gonna populate little wrecks all like
I wanna
minables.
It's not, can you go in and like, if you actually read the Reclaimer concept page, they talked about getting relics out of ships, but really the relics now are components and stuff. And
Yeah.
I get
But-
that.
and that's I mean that's going to eventually happen, but I mean with this first release, you're still going to search a wreck. Why are you going to search a wreck? Because they could have
Mm.
cargo, and then you can
Yes.
pull the cargo out first, and then go sell that, so you got a little bit extra money, and then once you've cleared the wreck for everything you need to do, you can go through and strip it.
As long as they
So-
put those things in the Rex, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, so
I can almost guarantee you
that's going to be a key, is if they can take these derelicts, because they talk about how they're leaving derelicts around the game for salvage to be, you can salvage those ships, but if they can, like, why not include those derelicts that they're leaving for the salvage ships as part of other, like, as a courier mission, or just having salvage out there, the boxes in the ship for more gameplay.
Bringing conflict between players, that's actually a pretty good idea, actually.
Well, is that that's what it sounds like you're thinking they're going to do, Astropub? Not necessarily with new missions, but just with additional stuff to get inside the ships.
Yes, I think because they already do that with the finding missions, where like this derelict ship, find the crew and stuff like that. I think what they're going to do is just plop some cargo on those frames, because it's super easy for them to do, because they already have that status of like basically make these shipwrecks soft dead, not hard dead, but soft dead. So it's much easier to just plop them out. Plus they can do things like arcing lightning, they can gussy it up a little bit here and there if they want to, just some simple additions that they have to make it look cool. Yeah, that's just about it. I think that was what people will do, but I also don't think most people will do that. I think most people are just going to pull their own ship out and strip it and make money that way, because people are obsessed with make 4 million UEC in 10 minutes sort of thing. So
how I was gonna say, how do you guys feel about when they bring munching online, that it'll probably put salvage as a more completed profession in front of mining, so to speak?
Definitely.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it would definitely. I mean, that's two different ways to salvage and one way to mine still. Even with the gadgets and components, munching is just going to be completely different gameplay.
Yeah, because at the moment we've really only got prospector size rocks, but they kind of artificially dialed up the ones for the mole. They're not long enough, because obviously if you sit and mine a rock in a mole, you can tell it's not really designed for the mole because it's too narrow. And they've got to do that for the mole. They've got to do ones for the Orion, and then they've got to do the underground for the prospector and whatever the RSI mine ends up being. So yeah, they've got quite a bit to do with mining compared to salvage, in my opinion.
The one thing that I really would like to know is, going back to the derelicts in these places being littered throughout for salvage to happen, are those going to be scannable by any ship? Because if they're adding derelict ships to the things that can be scanned for, that's in addition to the mineable rocks, and with the cargo refactor would also be in addition to actual cargo boxes. We can now scan and see what's inside of those. That's 3 different types of things that we can actually scan for and find when we go to a derelict or when we go to a new point of interest. That's actually a pretty big deal for the game.
Yep. I mean, it's all placeholder.
Yeah.
None of that stuff is final. So
they did have scanning on the roadmap at the beginning of the year, and it kind of obviously
they
dropped
always have
off or
scanning
whatever.
on it. Like, we've seen so many different scanning releases come out. I've lost track. I mean, I'm sure there's something is going to change with the star map, and when they get some of the new exploration stuff coming out with Quantum Boost, but I never know what's going on with scanning anymore.
we can just only hope that it's the last time they do it. That's the problem I always had. I'm always concerned about is like, and that's probably another concern with comes like salvage is this the final version of salvage?
Well, maybe we can talk about that. Maybe we can talk about that when we talk about next year, because I think that's, for me, it's one thing I think I would really like to see next year. Because I think it crosses a lot of the different gameplays more than most.
Yeah, it definitely does. Let's transition to the cargo refactor. So we were kind of getting into that a little bit a couple minutes ago. This is the first part of a multi-part update to cargo and the way it works. Simplest way to put it is, no matter whether the box is on a courier mission, you're getting it from a kiosk, an outpost, a city, you're taking it to some place to drop off for a mission, whether it's cargo that you purchased at a kiosk, a commodity kiosk, you filled your ship up with laranite and you're taking it somewhere, you got medical supplies, you're taking it somewhere, you looted a bunker, put it in a box and put it on your ship, all of it will be the same. So you can interact with all of it. It can be stolen off your ship. It can be put onto your ship. It will be locked into a cargo grid. It's a pretty big change, but there's a lot of the cargo refactor left after it. So what do you guys think of this being the first change? Do you think there was a lot of kind of backlash about it not being what people expected? Do you think they rolled it out well and communicated it well? And how do you think it's going to turn out?
Can I ask it with a question or
Go
answer
ahead.
with a question? Why did they only give us one other box type? Like how? Like I can't understand why there's not more box types.
Because they haven't
Like,
built the other
it
ones.
just feels so crap.
Which is a lie because they have,
I
but
mean,
they just haven't. It's probably not ready for
Yeah.
like because they have like size 3 or size 5 SCU cargo. You just have to blow up your ships to get them.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Feels really
I think
minimal, doesn't it? Like they didn't just quite do enough.
no, honestly, I don't think CIG communicated it well, but I think that has a lot to do with CIG not understanding their own community in some ways because the way that they portrayed it was cargo refactor. But if you read what was on the actual release view, they very carefully spelled out what they were going to do, and that was the thing. Like even if you read the release view today, it's not changed. The description hasn't changed at all since like August when I first looked it up, and I made a video saying don't expect cargo refactor in the game, or if we do, it's going to be very basic. And like a lot of people will like, wow, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
That was exactly the case.
Can I read that right now? I've got that pulled up. It says this is the refactor to allow both found and purchased cargo to be picked up, moved around, and placed into the cargo grid of a ship. And yeah, I remember it. I remember it reading just like that before. And I'm pretty sure I had an episode with Salty Mike where we pulled a clip out and posted it to the YouTube channel where we answered the question, "What is the cargo refactor?" Because it came off different, and I think they should have just called it physicalization.
Yes, they should have. And it's like a lot of things. Technically, CIG is right for calling it what it is, but there's a difference between talking amongst devs and talking to the public. And that's something that CIG still hasn't really gotten a handle of. Is I think the community team does a fantastic job of doing it. I think the PR team and the marketing team is okay at it. Marketing could be better, especially their copywriting can use some spell checks sometimes. And you know there are some like the handle, the infamous handle image gift from last year was
the Luminalia. Yes.
That's right,
they're
guys.
taking
We're
it in
getting more
stride.
goodies for this year's Luminalia. More JPEGs coming your way real soon.
Oh, but it's all in game, so we're getting in-game JPEG. So I'm really
put it
want
on my
that.
ship wall.
I really want a poster of that handle from the hover quad. That's just a like a actual poster that I can put in my ship.
Oh, that'd be
Do it.
funny.
Poster of a
That would
poster.
be great. They've got to do that.
Yeah.
Come on.
Because the joke would be a JPEG in your JPEG, so you can watch your JPEG while you play your JPEG.
Yo, dog.
Boom. So like there's just some issues there. Do I think it's a good thing? Yes, I think it's a great thing. I think it'll probably not change anything, honestly. It honestly does not change how that gameplay functions. And I remember seeing a leaked video of the Carrack being loaded.
Oh boy.
And someone was showing like, oh, you can't load it in the Carrack. And people lost their mind. I'm like, they're not supposed to. That's not what this update's about. You know, you can't really load things into the Carrack because it's not designed for it because the Carrack's not ready. Oh no, this is not going to work. It's like that's what it's just what we have now, except you can move boxes around. That's it.
That is a problem though. Like if you're trying to loot a Carrack with all the cargo down there, does it put the cargo down there or does it put it in the vehicle bay?
Puts the cargo down there.
Yeah, and or something like a freelancer. Like you've got ships where if you try to loot them, you're gonna have trouble. And
that came up today too on that episode we did too, Space, about ships that have it externally to internally as well. So that's another one, like the Hull A and the Nomad when we talked about that earlier today.
Yeah, are you even going to be able to loot the Hull A? Is the cargo going to disconnect from those arms? Have they said anything about that?
Not a clue.
No clue. And that's the same reason I brought it up, like when you brought it up earlier today.
Yep.
So yeah.
What do you think of the refactor execute?
It's again like everything in this game, it's a step forward. I just think I kind of agree with Paul. They didn't really handle the expectations well. I know yourself and myself did episodes recently on communication. I also know that they don't have as many community team members as they should. Hopefully, they can address that going forward. I think a lot of, I don't know, you guys tell me, but I think a lot of these stuff gets blown out because they don't respond quick enough. But
And because we're bored.
yeah, yeah.
Like
Well,
Star Citizen's
it's a
community
long
gets
time to
bored.
wait. It's a long time to wait, man. It's a long
Yeah.
time to wait.
No,
Like,
good reason for
um,
being bored.
I'll give you another. Like, this is something someone that I had a chat with a guy when I was playing Dark Tide today, and not today, sorry, I think it was 2 days ago, and he actually said he was a dev that worked for another publisher, and he said he's got a friend working at CIG, and he said, and it's just something I never thought of, and I'm a former developer, and I can't believe I didn't even think of it. And what he said, he goes, he's been working there with them for 5 years now, and he doesn't have a shipped game. And I was like, oh shit, yeah. Because a lot of the industry only will take you on when you have a shipped title. So because they don't have a shipped title, it's really hard for him to leave. He's locked to CIG until they ship this thing.
Huh.
And I was like, oh shit, I didn't even think of that. So there are new people that came in and this is their first ever game, but they've got to stay because they can't move because the industry, that's the way the industry works.
Jeez,
You
that
need
is.
to have things to show off, and yeah, and so that's that I mean that makes a lot of sense as to why Squadron 42 is being pushed so hard by CIG, because they want to try to get their developers recognition for actually building a game.
Yo, that is such a
So-
different way to think about it. Oh,
I know,
man.
and it changed my perspective on it too, and that's why I'm bringing it up, because I think it's very important to see it from their
And
side.
That's the other thing I didn't even think about. That's another factor, is that a lot of game companies will advertise for hiring that they have a certain number of shipped games,
Yep.
because they want to prove that they can ship a game, because otherwise it's just, oh damn.
Well, at the moment, all you can do is go, well, that guy that he was talking about is literally, I can put 5 years of experience, but they want, like you said,
How
they
many
want
games have you
3
shipped?
years of 5 years of experience and 2 shipped games or
shipped
whatever.
games.
And yeah. But
Yeah.
but I think that perception would change a bit if you also went to the interview and said, "Oh, I worked at CIG. I've been there for 5 years." They'd go, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's an exception, not the rule." But
It's an interesting angle.
yeah, it's something I didn't even think of. Like, and I should have known that, but I just never ever.
Yeah.
Putting yourself in other people's shoes, it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, and I mean a lot of, I guess you know how it works. I don't know how the industry works, so that's it's an interesting one for me. So let's take a little turn, because we've been talking about stuff that's a little bit back end, a little background in this patch. Let's talk about the more front-facing stuff that's getting added that people can get excited for. Actually, we did talk about Salvage, but anyways, let's talk about these new missions being added in Orison. So this is interesting. These are the first. I think these are technically the first missions being added to an actual city. Does this count as part of the city? Is it too far away because you have to take a tram ride, or is it part of Orison?
I mean, it's out of the armistice zone, but it still counts as part of the city.
Because you are getting there through the city. You can't.
I think it's the advantage. I think it's the advantage of Orison. You can just kind of travel out and despawn one platform and spawn in another, and you're in a whole your new bespoke area. You're not going to be able to do that so much as you could do it, but not to the same simplicity that you can in Orison. And what I mean by that is, like, say you're doing a new Babbage, you're still going to be able to see the other buildings.
Yeah,
you kind of can't do that so much in like Orison. They just hide everything with fog.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So these missions are a continuation of the missions that were used in Siege of Orison. These are assets that they already had, easily hook upable into the game, and so they brought them in as a feature for 3.18 for us to do more missions around the city. Do you guys think this is a sign of the future, more city-based content, or is this them just recycling some content?
150,000%. Not only have
that's a lot of percents,
he's right though.
Well, they did an SEL where they talked with the people from Montreal, and they laid it out like plain as day. They want to do every single building has an interior.
Did they say
Every
every
building in the
building?
game.
That's
Every building has
why
an
do they?
interior
Why would we want?
because
It's
because they wanna
procedurally
do it
generated.
procedurally generated. So it just happens when the building happens. And so and then they were going to do different overlays, like we have with the outpost, the different overlays. So like some of them will be industry buildings, some of them will be industry inside, some will have commercial inside, some will be residential inside.
But like, how's
So they
ArcWork gonna
allow
work? That's so many interiors
It's all
procedurally.
procedurally generated, man.
but it's all
But
procedurally generated.
we'd
and
have to render them as we fly past them, or what?
no, because you
No.
can cull the interior.
remember those,
But they
those,
show
those
the
windows,
interior.
those
Let
flight
me give me
windows?
let me give you a real simple example. If you are thinking of a character, or in this case, my cup, right? You can see this side. The game doesn't render this backside because you don't see it.
Right, but my point is, does that mean that we're just not going to be able to see into the buildings from the outside? From
They've
there on?
already talked about window tech. Remember they talked about the window tech to kind of
it's not-
fake the inside.
Yeah, I
It's not
figured.
just that, it's already in the game. The window tech's already in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I figured that was for buildings
Yeah.
that wouldn't have an interior. But what happens when you have gameplay that takes place both inside and outside of the building, and it's a actual
So you
strategical
know-
advantage to be able to see what's going on the other side of the glass?
So you know how you have LODs, like level of detail as you get closer, more detail. It's
Yeah.
essentially almost like, it's not called LODs, but it's like a LOD. So you could swap the whole building. So when you're inside it, it's completely different.
I'm more talking.
And you can also, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about like when you want to see outside, now the game has to render the inside of that. So like as you're flying by, it'll have to render every single thing.
That's it.
But I think what Execute is saying is that because you're not actually looking through that window, the game isn't actually rendering what's inside that window. It's just rendering a texture that looks like the window. And the only time it would matter,
you know,
like-
the render to texture technology.
Mhm.
It can use that. You can literally like almost like take a photograph of what the room should look like, and that's how they fake it onto the flat texture to go, oh, this is
yeah.
what it should look like.
My thing is, how much is it worth all this to be able to have every building have an interior?
So let's lay that out. So if you can actually have it spawn a mission objective in literally, so as Paul said, they're going to have industrial buildings, right? So they could literally have entities placed on every single floor. They can even have them randomly generated. So they're going to have 20 in every single room, and it randomly picks one. It randomly picks the floor, the one it picks the item you're going to pick up, everything can be randomly generated. And so every time you do that mission, it's a different floor in a different building in
I
a
get
different
that.
part of the city. That makes it so every time you do a quest, it feels different.
I have imagined this. This is what I thought they were
Yeah.
originally doing back when they first started introducing cities. But I started to get to the realization that, like, hey, maybe this is going to be a little more realistic, and they're just going to pick certain buildings, kind of like how they already have it, where you land on certain buildings.
Oh, I agree with you until that Star Citizen Live, and they're just like, we're doing this.
Right.
And
So
I would have been more pessimistic if it wasn't for the people in Montreal saying this. These are the people who are the tool kings.
I love them.
The people who, well, but the thing is, they know, like, their job is to take the tools that exist or make new tools for themselves to improve the game that we have now, rather than the far distant future of, you know, Nyx, Pyro, Terra, whatever. They're focusing on what can they do in the next 6 months.
yeah,
And the fact that the dude was like, we're doing this, and we're doing procedural generations for all of the interiors of these of every single building in Loreville, and doing it all. But the other thing, the reason why they'll do this, let me give you one thing, because Chris Roberts is a madman, and he wants to make sure that real estate in game has a value. So you will be able to go to Hurston Arms apartment 2B, and rent that apartment, and no one else will have Hurston Arms 2B and rent that apartment. Even though that's inefficient and it doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of gameplay, just give people just a random.
you don't
number
think they're
and then-
going to instance Habs?
Oh, hell no. Not with this announcement. No. They're definitely going to try to make it so that there is a set number of Habs that exist on the planet. Because the other thing they talked about with Loreville was neighborhoods. They've mentioned it a couple times where they want to do neighborhoods in Loreville.
Yeah.
So
Plus, you'll be able to invite people into your home and stuff like that as well for the role playing stuff.
So this is, but this is something that we're all realizing with this announcement, which is part
Not
of.
really. He did talk about this years ago. being able to rent a property, and we all
I don't
assumed
know. I
we
think
did assume
I think Sony. I
back
think
then
Todd.
it would be. We did assume back then though it would be
It's a
habs that
criticism.
yeah habs that would be what do you call it what did you call it just a minute
Instant.
ago with the instance
Instance.
instant
Yeah.
habs.
I think
Yes.
Todd Pappy implied it at some point. It might have been the Loreville demo at CitizenCon or some other time, but they definitely implied, if not outright said, that they were going to instant stuff. They wanted to have a decent amount of hab buildings, but I don't think they were actually talking about aiming for everyone to have a building, or for every building to have an interior. So that's just another one of those things that comes up, and I'm like, how necessary is it? How much do we need that content versus what it could be going towards instead?
Comes
Especially
down
with
to
Montreal.
the tools. Sorry, it comes down to the tools. If they can do it in a fairly efficient manner and literally have all that, like, can you imagine like how people carried on about ArtCorp when that was done? But can you imagine them turning around and saying, "Oh yeah, by the way, every room in every building is bespoke"?
But that's the thing. I don't really want to imagine it. I've never.
don't want
You
it.
won't
I've
have
never.
to.
I've
You
never
can
once,
live it.
I've never once played a game and thought to myself, "Man, every single place should be available to me." I mean,
But
I
you
get
combine
that
it
on
with
a
the
massive scale, right? I love
Yeah.
being able to fly to a planet or go to a city or land on an outpost or go to a mountain, but like every building in a city.
Well, you also add that with the quest system. We know they want to have a multi-part quest system. So you look at most MMOs right now, you've got like what fetch quests, kill quests, collection quests like that. But if you can chain those together and they're random and different every single time, and you can go to every building or wherever you got to do, you can start to see very quickly. It's like collect this, use that item to kill this guy, and then dump the body here and stuff like that. And then next time you do it's in a completely
Hey,
different
man.
order.
They got to be able to do that on the locations we already have first, and then I'll believe it's going to happen in every building in every city.
Well, again, pairs service mission, blah blah blah.
But this is the thing. It's like every single building in the outposts, the colonial outpost will be explorable.
Oh yeah,
Those are like small towns.
I get that. Yeah.
And they even have said that they can use a tool, their overlay tool. So like I understand the hesitancy, but I also understand from a gameplay perspective, a gameplay design perspective, it makes a lot of sense, because now you don't have to work nearly as hard to create new content. You can let the algorithm that you design produce content for you. And in order to improve upon it, I think it's also because Execute and I have both been playing a lot of Darktide, and this is how they build missions in Darktide, which is they use 7 or 8 different maps. They have like this one big map they've developed, and they've broken it up into 7 or 8 different sections, but they're all lead into each other. So there's like, you can see the jump off point where like, this is where this maps begins. So like they take this arena and it's connected to this whole area. And then you come back and you can see that arena and the other stuff,
Simpler way of doing it is they've made one big map and they have 3 different paths through it.
Yes.
And the paths intersect across each other. So you go like, oh yeah, I've been this in another level before.
Yeah, and they're like, the enemies will spawn, but they have specific spawn points. They have monster classes that come and go, and that's effectively what I can see is why CIG wants to do this, is because as playing this experience, it is unique. You never play the same, even though it's the same mission, it's never the same experience twice, because it depends on how the director or how the AI are spawning and which and then all they have to do is change up the actual mission ending in the future, and boom, you've got a different one. And the difference is that the Fat Shark devs have to do that by hand. CIG is trying to build this kind of as a lighter version of this. So I get it, but I also understand the whole, do we really need to be in the inside of every building, period? And the answer is probably no. But it's also Chris Roberts' game.
Incredible depth as well, like thief gameplay. You could go into a building and loot every single room in that building if you wanted to.
And I think what they're going to get from this, that they will continue to get until they start to fill out the game more, which Montreal is doing. But I think, again, they'll get the same kind of response I gave, which is we need to see that kind of stuff happening in the places we already are. We have simple missions. We need something more complex and more interesting to do there. But
I think it's in all. I think it's in all.
I completely forget what the original question was because I think
That's what I was about to jump back
we said
to.
110%.
Yeah,
I just really quickly. I think it's also an order problem because we don't have the server meshing and stuff. That they can't just bring in multi-tiered quests at the moment. They're all very one level, aren't they? But like eventually, once they can bring in more quests, they'll start to be more dynamic. We know from the design documents they've got this multi-tiered quest mission system that they want to do.
The dynamic mission system, which
that's it.
I've got
dynamic.
I've got another conversation to have about that after they showed us the investigation missions, but that's another day.
Yes.
The new missions in Orison, interesting development. Kind of talking about the future there. I don't know how much tangible, like actual new enjoyment it's bringing to the game.
I'm gonna bring back to what I said about Dark Tide because honestly, I've been playing a lot of Dark Tide. Been playing a lot of Dark Tide, and this is that kind of experience. And I think it encapsulates a nice little for people who like FPS combat. This is the nice, better than the current garbage tier underground missions that even CIG recognizes as garbage tier. It gives it a little bit more space because those platforms are huge. So there's so much space, but it also, because as a result, it's not quick. So it's giving players more of an experience of what that kind of gameplay is actually going to be in the future. Because we've all seen the underground facilities presentation. They don't want to make underground facilities. They want to build underground cities with those things. So the change is going to be such dramatic that this is kind of like almost a step in that direction.
Do you guys reckon that could be the test bed for it? Because I'm starting to think it could be.
I think it's a clever use of assets, but
like it's a small confined area that they can test it in, see the procedural stuff's working, and then roll it out to the surface, so to speak.
I take everything
because it's just all the internals. If you think about it, right, what's the difference of the inside of the building or underground? It's the same because they're just all inside buildings. If you think about it, so essentially they tested on the underground facilities, not having to build the actual buildings.
Yeah.
And you could also technically cheat and you could walk into a building and it teleports you under the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they could be good test beds. So Orison missions. Orison missions are a decent addition. We'll see how those fare, especially with the performance in Orison, how that looks. Let's talk about new location. Go ahead.
The one thing I will say is that it is a niche thing. It's going to be very niche. I don't think it'll hit most people. I think that's the downside of it, is that it's only if you enjoy FPS ground missions, which is like tiny part of the community.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about the new locations. We've got new crash sites with new ships. We've got new rivers in Stanton. So the single river we saw added to the game back in April, I think it was, or May. When it came out, people were very clear that, hey, this is a test. This is how the alpha works. This is they put in a feature, they figure it out, see how it works, expand on it, add it to the rest of the system. We're now seeing that actually happen. We're getting sand caves, which are the first new archetype after rocks, and we're getting a new racetrack. What's your favorite location added in 3.18?
Go ahead, execute.
No, I'm thinking. Don't hurt my brain. I'm thinking.
Okay, I got it. I all of the derelict outposts. All of them. That's my favorite because I do relic expeditions where I go out and look for relics, and the only place you can find relics is in the derelict outposts, and the only place you can find the derelict outposts is in the snowy wastes of Microtech. And Microtech is beautiful, but there are 2 or 3 different places of those outposts where it's always blizzarding. You can't see anything, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah.
So having a different place to go to, a Moon or Lorville or Hurston or like Lyria or whatever, like any place that is not just Microtech is going to be better.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that.
For me, it's 2-part. For me, so the first one would be caves, because those caves have been pretty damn broken for a really long time. Then the sheer number of times that I've gone to do a cave mission and it's failed because something is stuck or bugged.
Misery.
Yeah, they've made them a lot more ramp-like and a lot less more jumpy, so to speak, from what I saw in the ISC video. And then I think the second part is the racetracks, but specifically one that I think that's going to be a bit of a smash hit is the go-karts. I think that is going to be absolutely phenomenally popular. Now, I could be mistaken, but every time I see it, I just think of Mario Kart. They need to have that. As long as they have that, it'll be all good. But yeah, for me, I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy that. Like anytime you just want to hang out, go down to the go-kart track and have a little bit of stuff around with your friends. And I think it's just like go-karts in real life. They're quite funny, and you let off a bit of steam and have a bit of a giggle. And
it's a little extra, which is nice. Like kind of like the Orison missions. It's not something that's going to hit everybody, but it's something that's doable, and it doesn't matter so much now. But it'll be nice once there's more to do around the system, and you can just hop off your serious missions real quick and do something kind of knuckles, you know, for a couple minutes.
We should do a content creator charity stream with the carts. You know, I reckon that'd be funny. Actually, you know how they do like the celebrity races, and we could do that with for a whole bunch of content creators together, and you know, do something for charity. I think that'd be quite funny. Actually,
that'd be cool.
Just to see. Yeah.
What do you? I'd like to ask about the crash sites, because we see them coming out with these different settlements, these derelict settlements. We see them coming out with different derelict ships. But we also know that ships are going to be spawned by the quantum simulator, and they're going to be created by us actually shooting other ships down. I think I've talked about this with you guys before, but how do you think that's going to work? Are we going to have different tiers of derelict quality, from these pre-made ones down to the ones that we shoot down? Are they going to stop making these pre-made derelicts? Like, what do you think is the plan here?
So I'll put it in a question again, because I had someone say this to me, like, are you actually going to be able to come along, kill all the people there, and actually salvage the wreck? And I would like to hope eventually you can do that.
I think that is
the plan. They eventually become dynamic. So, you know, an NPC crashes their ship, and, you know, someone comes and rescues them, and that's the first part of it. And then, you know, squatters move in, so to speak, and they set up a thing, and it's a whole that lifestyle of NPCs. What was it? A life cycle of NPCs, but it's just over what, 3? I don't know. Pick the time frame. 3 months. You know, like, is it how long do they make these life cycles?
Yeah, so that's something that comes up when it comes to, like, hey, if you can salvage a permanent wreck like that, then how long is it going to take for you to respawn? How does it respawn? Is it going to respawn based on quantum, or based on the fact that there was already one there? Like,
does it respawn in a completely different area?
Yeah. What do you think, Astropub?
You know,
I think CIG is going to find a way of getting best of all worlds. So, like, we're going to get some of it will be with 318, it's just just what it is. But with going forward, I think we will see derelicts, which are traps, derelicts which are infested, derelicts which are just derelicts, and then like historical derelicts which will have super high value. They'll create a bunch of different versions of them and spawn them based off of the probability volume. And then there'll be the player wrecks. And I think the player wrecks will have a higher chance of despawning or going away, though CIG seems to want to do the hard thing. So they're going to probably end up just making it so the player wrecks get stored as virtual AI and quanta in the background as well. But
I think
I think for sure.
I think you could probably look at it really logically and just say it's going to improve over time. So just the more they work with it, the more it's going to, you know, they start out like tier 0, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, same type of thing. And just, you know, initially they'll all be bespoke. They'll make different levels of them. And you know, over time, they'll become more and more dynamic.
Remember when they were making the Reclaimer derelict settlement, and they were showing the development of it, how the Reclaimer was getting all this overgrown foliage, how they were building different versions of it that were rusted out to a certain extent and had different things growing on it. Why do you think we didn't see that for the 600i derelict that they created here?
Because it's on Daymar.
But there are different biomes on Daymar, right?
How dare you answer questions with law?
I guess they're all are they all the same, like, sand? I just was
They're
wondering, does that
slightly
mean this
different,
is only a
but
wreck that will
those
ever be
plants-
found on Daymar?
So to answer your
Yes.
question, so plants were for microtech. What Paul's kind of essentially is sand or gathering of sand is for Daymar. As plants is to microtech, or snow would be another one for microtech. The collection of sand is to Daymar, and I would not be surprised to see that roll back, Paul. Would you? And they use it to make the snow on microtech.
Yeah, I mean this 100% is only built for Daymar.
Is that
Yeah.
This wreck is just not procedural. It is handcrafted. It'll never
right?
leave.
So do you guys think that they're going to keep building them specific to each moon and planet, or like because
No.
Yeah, okay.
I think it'll
There
become
are-
dynamic to the point you'll be able to go, this NPC was flying this ship, someone shot this guy down, it roughly crashed in this area. It'll then...
Probability volume. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It'll all become super dynamic. But you got to remember, it's all going to be built in stages.
Yeah.
They are, and Paul nailed it. I keep pointing the wrong way. I'm so used to pointing this way, because you got me backwards. But what Paul said is right. It'll all just become dynamic, and they will build it up over time using the tools.
But that's
what Paul said.
That's what I'm curious of, because I was saying they showed us that they were building the Reclaimer to do that, to adapt to where it had crashed and landed. And so I figured, okay, so from here on, with the Reclaimer, with the Caterpillar they showed us last year, in general, with Derelicts, they're going to build them so that they can apply them to different biomes. But then we see this new one come out, and it is literally only for Daymar. So now I'm like, what's the next Derelict going to be? Is it only going to be for Maria? Is it going to be for a planet on Pyro? Or is it going to be something that can be applied to different moons and planets?
So it'll be a different ship and a different feature.
Yeah.
Right. It probably won't be snow because it's too similar to sand, but I'll let you pick the next one. You know, maybe
grasslands of Hurston. It'll be in like the savannas of Hurston, where like
something like that.
Or something. And the thing you can think of this is that like they're building the pallets for each wreck.
Right. And
So,
you think they can mix and
like
match them later?
Then they can mix and match them later. And they've talked about recently that they're developing a procedural tool for the trails that are left, like the divots that are left, that was being moved from, like they said before, it was like it'd take them a week to do it, and this tool should reduce it down to like a day or a couple of hours.
Well, it'd be similar to the road tool in a way, couldn't you? Because you go impacts here, drags this far because of the weight XYZ equals this, and you could do it all with math.
It's
slow. You could just click it and drag, and then just plop it.
It sped up their process a ton, from like 5 weeks to a few days or something like that. I do hope that they can mix and match it. You know, I look at the 600i crash site again, and it's very unique. It's very specific. It's hanging from a bunch of cables in a cave at a certain angle, and I wonder, can you put a Caterpillar in there? Can you put a
so that's now
in there? Is that something that you can trade other ships out for? And you know, what comes to mind to me always when I look at these features is how scalable is it? And so I just wanted to get your guys' opinion on what you thought of the way that they're adding these Derelicts into the game.
Yeah, well, that's now. I think down the road.
I honestly think it's too slow, and I'd prefer they don't do it like this. I prefer they just build it up to a point where it's procedural. But I think they're also, CIG's in this weird position where if they have something done, they want to put it in the game. But at the same time, not everything they build wants to go in the game. Like the whole C's done, not in the game. They talked about the test thing they did with the Javelin, and they're like, it was like a prop. It was like you couldn't look at it all sides. You could only look at it from very specific angles. Otherwise, the illusion would fall apart for the crash Javelin. So like that's not coming in. But these things are being made for the game to become into the game, to become mission areas. And it's like, I get it, but at the same time, I'd rather have it dynamic rather than static.
Yeah.
So
it is you kind of want a bit of mix of both in a way, and it's really hard to kind of explain because there's advantages to both. Because if it's dynamic, it feels too similar. Like it basically means, but if it's bespoke, then the only thing that's going to change is the weather effects on every single ship. So, you know, you take that Reclaim we were talking about, you put it on Daymar, it's got sand, you put it on Microtech, it's got snow and plants and blah, blah, blah. It becomes surrounded by its environment, but the ropes, you know, so think about it like that. If you have a tent, do you turn the tent on and off? Do you have it in different positions? That's all kind of got to be done by hand. And that's where it becomes really those bespoke little features, like a sign that says Port Tressler. Like how do you make that bespoke? Do you have it so that the sign's always in the same place, but that is put in by an artist and it's different, So I kind of come back to that whole thing where they talk about 70% procedural, 30% bespoke.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I think they'll probably use that same thing for all of these.
I'd like to see more of that, and I'd like to see them talk about that because I think that's something that I'm hearing one thing on, and I'm even seeing one thing on earlier, and now I'm like, it's kind of throwing me into confusion. So I hope they can clarify a bit more on that. Last thing that I think we should touch on with 3.18 before we move on to next year. Yeah.
Can I just, sorry, I've just thought of a really cool way to example it. You know how that guy built the racetrack for the pit in an hour and a half in his lunch break?
Yeah.
It's because he made it out of pieces, right? So if you can apply that to building the caves and stuff like that, they can build those wrecks really quickly at speed.
Yeah. Didn't they clarify too that was actually took him a decent, like a few weeks or something?
Oh, I remember the IC said it took him an hour and a half in his lunch break, but
no, I thought they had said something later on. Either way,
I didn't hear that. Sorry, if it is the case, I apologize.
No, yeah, I think that is good when they do have like assets that they can use to put that stuff together, and I hope that's something they can use more for the derelict settlements. We can get them a little faster. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about for 3.18 was the updates to the I guess they're kind of grouped together, the prison changes, but also the Correa changes, which include the crime stat, not getting crime stat with not getting a bounty with level 1 or 2 crime stats, and just the general hardening of the process of getting rid of a crime stat. Do you think that's going to actually encourage or discourage people from doing criminal stuff? Or is it just going to lead to a lot of people just backspacing to prison to wait out their sentence?
I want to say, if this shit, I'm out. But I just want to swear your podcast. But that's what it's going to be to me. Like, yeah.
Before we get into the too deeps, can we at least recognize that CIG listened to us? Because I believe it was a podcast with us three on it where we were talking about this very same thing. And I remember Execute very violently saying they need to reduce the crime stat for 1 and 2 to just fines. So that eats 3 and above.
Yeah, that would have been terrible.
And the next week they changed that.
Like, it was weird that they listened to me, a raving lunatic, but okay, sure, no worries.
Welcome,
it's nice
welcome to my world.
However little, however much.
I think that this, like Salvage, where Salvage is going to be worth its weight more than gold or more than Quantanium. I think the purpose of this is to test the prison system. So I think a lot of people are going to be shown in the prison. They're going to throw a lot of people in the prison, and they're trying to do their best to make interesting gameplay with what they have while also testing out new features. So
yeah, as long as it's more interesting and I was just gonna say, as long as it's more interesting in prison. That I think at the moment it's boring as shit. That running down 12 different levels of crap is just
it's very boring.
And the mining thing is and the breaking out, and what's the point of breaking out? You can't get rid of your crime stat easily. You've got to travel to the other side of the system now to get rid of it. So I'd actually like a way that you could break out and not have a crime stat. Like, if you do it right, like don't kill anyone, all that type of stuff. I don't know.
Or hack while you're there.
It'd be cool if they like had everybody turning in the minerals close to where they mine them, and then also have missions to carry those minerals back to the main area.
Yeah.
Like little cargo delivery kind of mission.
I know why they're doing this, because the goal of breaking out of prison and escaping is to escape to Pyro, because that's the whole point of that mission loop, is so you can get out of Pyro without losing your criminal stat, because your criminal stats is also going to be connected to your reputation. And like, I honestly think it's a cart before the horse situation, though. It's CIG pushing the cart before the horse, as they always do.
Yeah.
Because you've got to give things for your staff to do, you see, and that's the other thing. Like, you look at this from the other side, that you've got staff sitting here waiting to do stuff. It's like, well, we can't do anything because we're waiting for this to move. So what can we do?
Well, and is that what we're seeing with the shield changes?
I think that's with a lot of things in this game. Let's be honest.
Yeah. But the shield changes are the latest, I think, example of this kind of thing.
Yeah. Yogi even said that they're doing it to test what they need to do before armor comes in.
Okay.
So they're using it as a like he said The point of this is to see what impact it has so that we can take that data, and when we actually make armor values for ships, then we know what armor needs to be able to do in order to protect ships from ballistics.
Well, hopefully we hear more about armor.
Yeah, I mean that's the implication, but I'm always a little wary whenever CIG developers say something about a feature that is not yet introduced or is in the future as kind of off the cuff, because it's like to CIG, like, oh yeah, that's going to be coming out soon, and soon is like 12 months.
The most popular saying ever. We want to.
Yeah, we want to, and but for the rest of us, it's just like that's not soon. Like as soon is like next patch, right? For your average person. So it's that disconnect there. I'm not a big fan of the changes. I think they're cool, but I think that they're designed for a part of the game which isn't in the game yet. But those people have already finished their work, put it in, move on. I do think that it's going to end up with more people just backspacing and just like logging off and being like, cool.
But here's to return to that. You pretty much almost have to choose to go there now.
Yeah.
It's level 3. Like level 3 is killing someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. No, so the only let's lay that out. The only time I can see that happening by accident is your friend walks in your line of fire, type of thing.
And if your friend's in your party, then it doesn't count.
They can forgive you too.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes it easier. And they even went through the whole process. Like they fixed bugs where like a gunner shoots somebody and you get a crime stat. They've done a ton of things with the law enforcement to make it a little bit more fair. So, because I mean, let's be honest, the mini event that we're getting with Korea is a heist. It's Ocean's 11 but with guns, and
space.
It's like what we're getting here is this is going to be kind of weird. We're getting several games with 318. We're getting Hard Space Shipbreaker Junior, Baby's first Hard Shipbreaker with Salvage. We're getting Left 4 Dead, or the typical horde shooter with the new platform missions, and we're getting Payday, or is it Payday?
Yeah, Payday. Payday. I think the other one you would want to add is Sea of Thieves.
And Sea of Thieves. With that. So we're getting all of these different small mini versions of these games in 318. So that's what it feels like. Which is all right, I guess. But I'm still think it's still premature. But
yeah, and we keep seeing that with things that are not important, things that are very important, but like things that are just getting put out at times you wouldn't expect it. And I guess that's just the nature of the fact that they're building the game and they have to do certain things at certain times that might not make the most sense just because like it needs to be in the game to get tested. But yeah, I think there's a couple of things coming in with 318 that are going to be a bit painful because they're just halfway done kind of things. But anyways, that is I think a solid preview of 318. Now,
yeah.
The closing question, and this is probably going to go on for longer than a closing question should. But what are we thinking in terms of vast, and like I said at the beginning of the podcast, this is something I want to do every week leading up to the new year. What do you think is going to be the tone and atmosphere of 2023 in terms of additions? Like, this year was very much dominated by PES. Next year, will be dominated by server meshing, but like, what else do you think players can look forward to next year?
It's hard to gauge, isn't it? Because the rate that they add things has always been glacially slow, because we all know they're doing Squadron 42. I don't think you guys correct me if you think I'm wrong here, but I don't think the speed's going to change too much. I think until Squadron 42 is out the door, we're at this slow pace. So I would expect kind of a bit more of what this year was like, because we've still got server meshing to go in as well. But I do think the game will run better. I think that's a big one. We know I think he said mid next year he wanted to have a lot of the optimization in and stuff like that. I'd hope they get a few more gameplays in, but let's be realistic. we're getting salvage, and it took like how many years since mining? So I'd love
but
I'd love it if
engineering's
it,
right there.
We got refuel earlier this year.
Mm.
People forget that.
And
So-
Yeah, that's
medical
true.
was kind of a profession. It wasn't a
I'd say-
huge change, but
I would say more medical and repair is probably the two biggest ones we're probably likely to get. I'm probably being too hopeful, hoping for scanning. They've also said obviously more salvage. So yeah,
I think engineering is a pretty
Oh,
good
for sure.
a pretty good bet for next year.
it falls under repair. Yeah.
No.
No, you don't think so?
No,
It's
I think
it's
'cause
internal
engineering-
repair. Internal repair. Yeah.
yeah, but even then it's not just repair. You're talking about life support, fire management, and then there comes like the relays and the components, but like it's kind of a different, because it's also going to be on space stations, it's going to be in colonial outposts. It's kind of like a part of the game too.
Everything he says is a lie.
Oh. Hey.
And here's dig.
They dig that.
We're live dig.
Are you?
Yeah, we're recording.
Yeah. Oh, I really hope that stays in. I really
Yeah,
hope that
me
stays
too.
in.
Well, there's dig that featuring for the quick.
I
the quick-
apologize, honey. I apologize.
So much editing
We gave you
she has
the
to do.
Yeah.
the worst editing job right now.
Yeah.
She's just gonna
You
not
are-
edit it
we
at
are
all.
off
She's
the
just gonna do
Christmas
it
card
raw.
list.
Just gonna write
Yeah.
on the screen. Hate you guys.
Yeah. We're just gonna cut to see honey just looking at the screen like, I hate
Yeah.
you. I hate all of you.
What were we? But we were talking about next
year.
year kind of expectations. Okay, so you think it's not really going to speed up too much? It's mostly going to be dominated
Yeah.
by kind of the preparation for server meshing. Astropub, you're of the same mindset?
I think the main focuses next year is going to be multi-crew gameplay. I think that is going to be their main focus. And anything to support that in any way, shape, or form is going to be the thing that gets the priority. Because what Chris and the team seems to want is they want to have larger ships for Pyro, and they know they're going to be able to do larger ships for Pyro. And since Pyro, and this is the context I want to say, welcome to the long road to Pyro. It's not going to happen until the end of next year. I would not at all, like we're probably talking about a 4.0 releasing in December of next year.
If we're lucky,
Based
I
off
hope
of
so.
all of stuff.
Yeah,
if
I
we're
think
lucky.
you're very lucky.
Because they have a lot of stuff they have to get finished. But it's not the things you think that they need to get finished, because like the planets are done. The a lot of the parts of of what we think of a system for Stanton is done, but a lot of the other parts aren't. And I think that's the expectation I have. The other expectation I will say is there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be moved in from Squadron to Star Citizen next year. So this movement system, the EVA system, probably the Moby Glass, those sorts of the things they showed us at CitizenCon will probably also take priority to be moved
Makes a lot of
over
sense.
into.
Yeah.
I think. Can I just kind of add to that? I'm wondering, like, I'm sitting here thinking of ships that we know that they're kind of working on, of giving sneak peeks. So, like, the first one I thought of was a Santoki Eye. I think we're going to get the Santoki Eye at Invictus because in Alien Week, because we've seen sneak peeks of that. We've heard them, like you said, talk about wanting ships for Pyro. Like, a lot of people considered the Liberator pool, but I also consider the Galaxy as well. And you look at the gameplay for that. With the medical, the cargo, I'm not too sure about the refining, but I'm trying to look at. We know there's a lot of RSI ships on the lineup as well. I'm trying to think. Like you mentioned, multi-crew, and I'm trying to think of things to back you on that. And I kind of do see that there is quite a fair bit there. You got the Corsair, the MSR, the Connie. They could all kind of spin them up a bit, can't they? And kind of link that into it. Yep, that's another one. You got Staff Pharaoh with the refueling is another one. The cargo refactor goes further. So they bring in more ships that can do that. Yeah,
There's
I
a
also
good
talked
one.
about improving targeting because Yogi was talking about targeting and changing the targeting and pips, and there's a lot of things that are happening in 3.18 that are preparations for future additions to the game, which all seem to be around combat, which makes sense. Squadron. So
well, also combat in Pyro with pirates, that kind of makes sense to me too. But yeah,
and multi-crew combat with because they want to make sure that more people are getting out of those Gladiuses. The Gladius isn't the beat stick to end all beat sticks. That people want to fly their Connies, that people want to fly their Corsairs because they're good ships to combat in. So
calling it now. If we get there, we are doing multi-crew streams. That would be sick.
Yeah. I mean,
that would be mad.
Mr. Space Tomato's already been doing this stream.
Wait.
You should be watching these streams.
Yeah. Captain Tomato
Starting,
and his two mates Execute and Astro. I'll be the cabin boy.
He's already been doing these streams with multiple. He did an entire stream with which is archived on youtube.com/TheAstropub or no, TheAstropub. TheAstropub.
It's on his channel.
The youtube.com/SpaceTomato2. Is it right, or is it in Space Tomato?
No, it's on Space Tomato. Yeah, it's on the main channel.
Space Tomato.
Yeah.
Where he's streaming where he's trying to run a multi-crew game with Corsair. But I think because Chris likes the big banner stuff. And I think that's the big banner is multi-crew gameplay, because multi-crew gameplay for Pyro, because that's an easy sell. That's a great marketing gimmick. You and 5 friends take on the wild frontier of space.
Yeah.
Dangerous and beautiful. Bang, bang. You got exploration, you got co-op, you got they want to sell 1 million Connies, that kind of thing.
Here's a question for you. Do you think they'll get the second part of the cargo refactor in next year?
Yes, 100%.
Persistent hangars and freight elevators and cargo timers. Okay, that'll be big. That's going to be huge if they did get that.
Yeah,
we're also go ahead.
I think pretty much almost everything that's scheduled to end soon on the progress tracker will probably make it in. There'll probably be a couple of things that won't make it in.
That's what's
I think a lot of that stuff
that's got me confused, because if you look at the progress tracker, there is a lot of stuff that's scheduled at least to finish in the next 6 months, and I'm like, they can't drop all this in 4.0. It's like, are they going to have 2 other updates, one in the summer and then one in the fall, to get this kind of stuff in there before 4.0 comes in? Because that's a lot of stuff.
It's the way it works with development. As you all come towards the end, a lot of things come online, right? It all builds up, and you hear about crunch and stuff like that. The reason why you hear about crunch is because there's more and more things going in, more and more work needed, right? And that's a part of it. So as this is all good things, because we know it's all starting to come together now.
Yeah. I personally think that next year is going to be a year of quality of life. We're going to see a lot of things that might not be defined as quality of life, but things that are going to make this game so much better to play. And B, I think it's going to speed up. I think we're seeing a trend of acceleration. Really? Yeah, I think we've been seeing a trend of acceleration. I did a video on this. I'll send it to you. It's an exclusive right now. But we've been seeing the importance of features, not necessarily the number, but importance of features really starting to grow ever since about 2019. And 2022 was a huge proving year in the same way. PES, Cargo Refactor, Gen 12, new Derelicts, River System, AI navigation. We've seen a lot of really, really key stuff. And I think
technically speaking, you are correct, because we've essentially seen that. I remember saying when we did a video earlier at the start of the year, I think it was the very first one of these, the launch sequences we did. I remember saying the amount of gameplay we have right now by the end of the year should be doubled, and that's correct. With the cargo refactor and the salvage and the piracy stuff, that's more than doubled what we had at the start of the year.
And
so you are right.
I will agree with a condition, Space Tomato. I think you're right, but I don't think that we're going to see all of that catapult until fall of next year.
Yeah, and I don't want to oversell what I'm saying. I'm not saying that we're going to see an explosion of content, or that it's going to blast off. I think we're just going to see the continuation of the trend that's already been happening. I think a lot of the stuff that we're seeing is going to make more content, more missions, more points of interest and stuff like that.
the surprise, we have racing loop in the game now.
Sure.
Here you go, like 2 weeks before it's supposed to go live.
Yeah, that's
an
the
entire
kind of
new race,
stuff.
you know.
And we
Yeah.
saw it with the server sizes increase as well. We saw it with a couple of other patches towards the end of last year. Like, they're starting to slip things in because I think they're getting a lot better at delivering things. And with
I think it's also partially, though, they know some of, like, they saw, like, let's take the racing tracks, for example. They saw how much we like the pits, so they went out and go, oh, this is something we can do very easily, and they made 6 more of them.
9.
You know, because it's low hanging fruit.
yeah.
9.
And
They
with
made
9.
more.
Okay, sorry, I lost count. My bad. But you get my
I
point.
mean,
Like, it
to-
just
to-
reinforces my point, Paul.
yeah.
To be fair, all of these are actual, like, fans were created. These are all is it XGR, whatever. There's all their tracks.
Yeah.
But they just took their tracks and added content. But that's the thing. It's like they have the tools
They can do that
to
now.
just drop it in and
Yep.
let it go. And I do also think that a lot of this stuff, and this is the other thing that I'm going to say, and I said this in the captain's table, I'm gonna get in trouble. I'm waiting for I'm waiting for you, chat. I'm waiting for you comments, because this is gonna say, I think next year is the year of theaters of war.
Oh,
I know.
I know. Those are fighting words, Paul.
That's
Those are
a
fighting
lot of
words.
people gonna be laughing.
Dude.
A lot of people
You just
will be
killed
like, I'm
Tomato with
mad.
giggles. What are you doing?
I mean,
Here's the reason why.
oh my god, why'd you
If you
say
look
that on
at-
my show, Paul?
Because
I
I
don't
want to
need
get you
that
in
kind of
trouble.
publicity,
The reason why I say that is because the Arena Commander team it's a sleeper. There's some people on the Arena Commander team who have been doing some work. They not only added 9 racetracks, they're also adding all of those 9 racetracks into Arena Commander. They're already working on a new combat map for Arena Commander based off of Jericho Station. So, and they've started that in like September, and it's going to come out probably through 19.
I still have
So
I still have a really big thing about Theaters War coming with Squadron 42. I think it's the multiplayer they're going to kind of use
it
to
is.
help push.
But they're gonna have to get that out before
Well,
Squadron.
they do need to
42
test it. You are correct.
to
Yeah,
test
okay.
it.
Yeah,
They
okay.
need to have
I'll give you that.
multiple, they need to have multiple maps and multiple plays and that kind of stuff. It's still going to come out
Yeah.
because all of Arena Commander and Star Marine and all that stuff comes with Squadron 42. People
Mhm.
forget about it. It's literally in the game package.
Well, I hate to admit it, Space, but he is technically correct, and that is the best type of correct. And he's an asshole for
Yeah,
it, but
I-
he's technically correct.
I'm still not going anywhere near that prediction.
Well, we also know that it has been worked on. People don't read it because they get unreasonably mad, or I should say reasonably angry whenever CIG talks about stuff. But they've continued to develop Theaters of War quietly for a while. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a beginning of next year or towards the end of next year, Sean Tracy comes out and says, "Here's Theaters of War with 3 maps."
I don't.
Well, they did leak Sean Tracy out of the cave recently, so he's at least
Yeah.
going outside again, which is good.
I don't
Seeing
see
human light.
the FPS gameplay being good enough at the end of next year.
I disagree, but yeah,
Server
I
meshing.
hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Man, we've been talking about server meshing for so long. Like I'm not. It's kind of like you said, Space. It's not like the floodgates are going to open, but I think. Look, put it this way: I don't think it's going to go to a flood, but I think it's going to allow a lot more to go into the game. I think there's going to be a lot that's been held back, and obviously they're not just going to go and let it all in. But I think they will definitely, patch after patch, things will come in, at an increasing accelerating rate, like you said.
Let me add another bit of evidence to this. The FPS gameplay has to be ready for Squadron.
True.
And we already agreed that a lot of the stuff they showed off is going to be to probably be set for next year. Like, you at least want to try to get a lot of that aspect ported over from Squadron.
Mm.
So I wouldn't be, again, surprised if FPS is in a better state simply because it's got to be in a better state for Squadron.
I like to think that.
So
I like to hope, but
It's hard to be.
I don't believe FPS will be in a good enough state for that in a year. I hope
Yeah.
I'm wrong, but I'm going to put that out there on the record.
Yes, thank you.
Well, it depends. Depends where the NPC stuff goes network-wise, doesn't it? Because there's a
yeah.
different AI stuff in a single-player game than there is to a multiplayer game. So it really depends how much transports. What do you call it? What did you call it before? Space comes across from Squadron 42.
To be quite honest, this prediction I've made before. I made it just made it in the captain's table. It's not something I 100% am like sitting here. I'm like, it will happen. I'm just saying I can see it happening because the same team that did. By the way, we now have a racing loop and nine tracks. You're welcome. Is the same team that's working on Theater's War.
Yeah. It doesn't hurt to have a bit of hopium.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
I think there's a lot of good things to be looking forward to for next year, and I hope Theaters of War can be added to that. But ultimately, it's looking like there's just a lot of good features finishing up, and I think we can all agree that like the stuff we're going to get next year is going to be more significant than the stuff we got last year, and it's just going to continue to confound like that as this game gets as this game gets further and further into development.
So if they have CitizenCon in England next year, are you guys going to go?
It's going to be in LA.
I don't think it will be. I think LA is going to be the big
Sandy
one.
confirmed it.
No, Sandy
really?
Confirmed it was in LA. Yeah.
When was that?
She did it on SCL, yeah, and then posted it on
Twitter.
Twitter.
I didn't hear that. Yeah, it tells you that I didn't watch that episode. I just watched.
I didn't watch, but it's on.
I couldn't be bothered.
It's on Twitter. She made a post there too.
Yep.
But yeah, it'll be in LA next year, which will be cool. I'm gonna try and make it to that. Let's wrap this up.
Whose couch am I staying on? All right, you tell me after the show. Whose couch am I sleeping on?
Well, I am 400 miles away over here, so we're gonna be in.
I was gonna say Tomato's the closer than I am. I am several thousand miles away.
Yeah, we got some distance. But ultimately, 2023, I think is gonna have quality of life coming out the ears. I think we're gonna see the new player experience completely change. Because we already know they're focusing on the 30 minutes of first new player experience with just the general landing areas, but we also know we're getting better scanning features. We're getting a better interaction system that is so much better at indicating what people can do with objects. We're seeing improvements to movements, to platforming, and we're seeing better polish just all across the board. So I think quality of life next year is going to go up more than any other year we've seen so far. What are your guys' final thoughts on what players can expect next year?
It's going to be a better year than this year. I think it's just going to not be obvious. I think it's going to be a good year if you want to play the game. It's not a good year. It's not going to be a good year if you want to see the game progress in a way that is the final version is going to happen. I mean, I think we are still going to have that, but like Pyro, I don't think it's going to until the end of the year. And I think a lot of people will be upset because a lot of people are saying they want a visible expression of advancement. They want to see that advancement, and another star system is that advancement. PES is not. It's just something in the back end that they don't see. Performance is nice, maybe more players we'll probably see. I can almost guarantee that we'll see more players.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Simply because of that. So I think it'll be a great year if you're a new player. If you're a new player who just got in this year or like recently and you're looking, this is going to be an amazing year for you. For everybody else, I think you're going to have to take a little bit of, go to the sauna, sweat out all the salt, make sure you're nice and cleansed, and then come in with fresh eyes.
Yeah, that's what we were saying. That's what we were saying about 2021. Like 2022 was not even supposed to be considered that, and then it ended up being that, and now 2023 as well.
So for me, I always try to look at it as like they're always making progress, right? And even if it is really, really slow, I always try to hope that they are making progress. And it is very hard for us to see that progress because of Squadron 42. But these gains that people are looking for, like you said, Paul, with like a whole new system like Pyro, we're not going to really get those really big gains until Squadron 42 is out the door. And I always just, this Squadron 42 can't fail, right? If it fails, the publicity is just going to absolutely kill it. So I am like what I say with ships, like I am always happier the longer a ship takes to come out because it's just always so much more polished, new features, etc. It's the same way you got to look at this game. We are playing a waiting game. We are playing something that has never been done before. It just takes so damn long to get it done, and it is a very slow burn. Play some other games, and I can tell you right now, as content creators, we don't really have the same luxury you do. We follow this game every day. We
Or
have to.
us.
It's kind of a part of our job,
It's an
right? But
addiction.
you guys can
I have a
walk
problem.
away. Yeah. Yeah, we need to get you on what's Batgirls AA
Batgirl.
Anonymous. Yeah. Enable us.
Star Citizen Anonymous, man.
Yeah, well that's what she's got, Star Citizen Anonymous. Yeah. So but the point I'm trying to get at is if this is too slow for you, you've got other options, right? And take them, right? Because this will be a generational game. It'll be something that is unlike everything we've seen before. And I can tell you as a developer, the length they've gone to with the tools is insane compared to most games. Almost everything you see in most games is built bespoke. That's why you don't remember back in the day, you see level editors come out. You don't see levelers anymore because they've got to polish it all up for people to be able to actually make it usable. But this team that they've got at CIG has all these tools. They are preparing for the future. They are preparing to roll out these giant, massive worlds. And like when we were talking about the procedural buildings, you think that might not bear fruit, but there's probably fruit we haven't even seen where they will use that stuff. And they're probably like, think of all the other games that we've talked about this before, like a Star Trek game or a Star Wars game. There's just all this stuff that they could use the engine for that we just haven't thought of. I'll leave it with that. Like
tools.
Yeah,
it's
we'll see what they
the
do
tool.
with that.
The tools are just amazing in this game. I like, and the freedom that a lot of the developers get is just amazing. It pushes the creativity, and they all push each other. I'd love to have worked at CIG, but I was just 15, 20 years too late, and I obviously live at the arse end of the world, so that doesn't help either. But yeah, if they ever open an Australian studio, I think I'd probably go apply. But living where I do, I don't think I've got much choice. But yeah. That's why I want to live on your couch, Paul. No, just kidding.
Well, guys, thank you so much for sitting here with me talking about some of this new upcoming gameplay, especially 3.18. I think there's going to be a lot of excitement. A lot of people want to hear about that. If you are still listening, tell us what you want to see in 3.18. Tell us what you were excited for. I'm sure everybody will be stopping by the comments at some point, looking into what you guys are talking about. I think there were a lot of discussion points during this show.
Come at me with your Theaters of War.
Oh yeah,
assaults.
yeah.
Come
That
at me.
Theaters of War is going to get a lot of timestamp that.
We need the
timestamp it.
right here,
Clip
honey.
it.
We need the bodyguard soundtrack.
All right, folks.
Yeah.
So where can the audience find you and your content?
You can find me at twitch.tv/TheAstropub, youtube.com/TheAstropub live, and youtube.com/TheAstropub, the Astro Historian. The Astro Historian is my lore channel. You can find all my lore stuff there. You can find my gameplay and other content on the Astropub live, and you can find me live 4 times a week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, discussions and gameplay of Star Citizen and other games at twitch.tv/TheAstropub.
youtube.com/Inforunners. We stream on Thursdays. I think it's 4 p.m. New York time or 6 a.m. Rosie 6 a.m. Australian time. What else do we do? Oh, you'll find both these gents. I keep pointing the wrong way. You find both these gents there as well. We talk about everything from ships to deep dives to helping you save money on ships. I don't know. What you guys know what we do there. I'm terrible at self-promotion. You know this.
Ship stuff.
Yeah, ship stuff.
Ships,
But it's not just ship stuff. It's a bit everything.
Speculation.
Yeah.
We do analysis of the game. We talk about Star Citizen. We talk about Star Citizen in ways that as the game now, as the game's developing, and how you can enjoy the game now. We have a great video out of Execute and Griffin Gaming RPG and who else is that one?
Stim and Algrid.
Stim,
both in that.
Where Execute was giving his Origin Bad speech, and it was them trying to argue it.
Best clickbait title ever.
it works.
Did you see what
Origin
Croncy did?
sucks.
Did you see what
Turns out
Croncy
not.
did on Twitter? He goes, "Oh, so Inforunners have chosen violence." It's like, what is-
Execute woke up and chose violence, is what it was.
Yeah, it was just so funny. But no, that was a great episode, and I'm going to be honest. That is one of those episodes that I really enjoy, where you've got these completely opposing opinions, and you find this middle ground, and both sides learn something. Everything I do is to try and teach myself, and if the audience gets pulled along with it, awesome. Everything I did, like the professional point of view series, and I've seen, Paul, you've even started bringing professionals onto your captain's tables, so I know I've had an influence on you as well, right? So and Space, I'll do the same to you. It is mind-blowing how you could take the real world and connect it to professions, and it actually works. I'll introduce you to Tecton. He will blow your mind because he's a geologist, and they were taking me through Cellin, and they were going, so every little volcano on there was bespoke, and they were going like, so this is where the sediment would fall down, and you'd be able to find minerals like right here. And I was sitting there with my game developer hat on and going, so where those go would actually have different layered maps, and they could just tell on the map, this is where you should spawn shit. And so it actually all works, both geologically and gameplay wise, which blew my mind.
Yeah.
So
some good stuff on Inforunners. If you guys want to get more in-depth, very in-depth discussions about Star Citizen, it's a good place to go.
And you haven't realized we tangent like crazy.
Yeah.
Yes.
So thank you everybody for coming and checking this out. Thanks for watching on YouTube. If you're on a audio platform, thank you so much for listening. Please consider leaving a review or a rating or whatever it is they have on that platform. But also check out my other podcast. It's now on audio platforms as well, called Citizen Central, where I get a bigger group of people together to discuss some of the bigger aspects of the game. So a lot of Star Citizen stuff. This one, however, does tend to go off sometimes to other games, Starfield, No Man's Sky. Every once in a while we talk about other
talk
things.
about Starfield.
Yeah.
Sorry,
we got to
Sorry, honey. I'm sorry. So
we
sorry.
gotta get on another Starfield one. But
Yes.
thank you so much for coming, everybody. I have to, of course, plug before we go our merch. It is awesome, guys. We've got some great Christmas merch going on. I'm wearing the hoodie already, a ho 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 hoodie, but we've got a great original piece from an artist in the community who put something together. It's got all the little aspects of it's a good celebration of the season. So check it out if you want to support us. It's a great way to do so, and it'll keep you warm. And with that, I'll see you all.
So as an Australian, when are we going to see the Space Tomato Bugly Smudgers?
I don't know
Ugly
what that
smugglers.
is.
I have no idea what that is.
Budgie smugglers? You don't know what they are?
No.
No.
Ooh.
We'll have to tell us later.
I'll let you Google that.
Yeah, I will figure that one out. But anyways, folks, I'll see you all next week. Thanks again for coming, and have a good one.